The International Ice Hockey Federation would like to welcome you to the 2023 IIHF Championship Program and this rule information presentation. This specific presentation is aimed towards teams and coaching staff participating in the World Women's Championship Senior Division and to all the assigned game officials and officiating coaches. We hope by sending out this presentation prior to the event that the IIHF can provide all the participating teams and game officials and officiating coaches with the same information and with the same standard about the implementation of the IIHF rules for the season 2022-2023. In this presentation video, will the IIHF provide you with a bit more information on the following topics. We will go over a little bit about the IIHF standard and playing rules for 2022-2023. And with that, the highlighted topics of physical play, restraining fouls, equipment and fair play. We will also touch base on specific game procedures and regulations, and as well inform you about pre-tournament meetings and preparation that could be important for you as a part of the coaching staff in a team, or for you as a game official on the ice working the games in the upcoming tournaments. We would like to start off this presentation by go over briefly about the IIHF playing rules and implementation standards for the season 2022-2023. In the upcoming events that you will play, we ask you to pay attention to always follow the latest updated official version of the IIHF rulebook. For this coming season and the upcoming event, we will play by the IIHF rulebook version 1 published in July 2022. For specific rule interpretations and clarifications, we ask you to please go in and look at the IIHF Situation Handbook. This is the official document where you can find all the rule interpretations. It is your own responsibility to make sure that you always use the latest updated document, and you can obtain these going into IIHF.com. To know the rules is one thing, but the second part is to understand and have a good knowledge about the implementation and what we call the IIHF standard. We would like to start by talking a little bit about the IIHF standard around physical play in women's senior hockey. It is important to note that in women's hockey, body checking as in male hockey is not allowed. In women's hockey though, competitive body contact between players is allowed if the contact does not cross the line of becoming of such force that is deemed as a check. Illegal body contact is defined by two skaters that are trying to gain possession of the puck and using their body reasonably to push, shove, and lean to the opponent. Possession of the puck must remain the sole object of the contact between the players. In this rule information video, we go a little bit more in depth into the physical play and what is allowed or not allowed in the form of body checking within women's ice hockey. It is important to start with that body contact between players in women's hockey is allowed, and that the sole purpose of that contact must be to gain possession of the puck from the opponent. The contact is limited to actions of force such as shoving and leaning towards an opponent into the situations. And as we can see in this particular situation, the white player must adjust her speed and distance to the opponent to enable a safe and fair body contact. The player must go into the contact with the sole purpose of gaining possession of the puck by leaning into the opponent. As we can see in this situation, the player is using a force that is not leaning or pushing towards an opponent. It is a body check and shall be penalized. In this other example, we see a battle between the black player and the player in the white team. The player number 22 goes into the situations where they're battling for the puck already, and she must go in with the sole purpose of the contact to play the puck. She can use force to do this, but it has to be of a character of leaning in towards an opponent. As this player is already engaged in a contact and the force of the hit is higher than expected, this is to be penalized as an illegal hit. In the following examples, we will see a good body contact between players. In this first example, number 22 in the red team goes in. She goes in and tries to play the puck. She has the intentions to play the puck from the opponent. And she's using her body to make contact with the opponent, but in a way where she is leaning in towards the opponent and using a physical force that is not going over the limit of body contact. This is a good body contact to separate the player from the puck. In this other situation, we see how the player in the blue team and the white team is battling for a loose puck. Both are competing down towards the puck and they are engaged in the battle for the puck. Neither player is breaking their skating lane or goes into the situation by any bigger force than leaning towards the opponent. Both players are using their strengths, and in this particular situation, blue player is using her strength and leans in towards the opponent to win the battle for the puck. What we just saw in the previous movie was a quick overview about what is a legal and illegal hit in women's hockey. What we would like to focus on now is how to define the standard for minor or major penalties to be called for illegal hit. As we said earlier, in women's hockey, body contact is allowed. As an example, if two players are in pursuit of the puck, they are reasonably allowed to push and lean into each other, provided that possession of the puck remains the sole object of both players. In the previous movie, this was the main focus. When we now look on the game officials making the judgment call if this should be a minor penalty or a major penalty for a illegal hit, the game officials need to use their judgment to grade the severity of the contact based on several factors when determining what sort of penalty shall be imposed. This is not limited to the points below, but these points below plays a very important role in this judgment. The game officials must look on the force of the contact made by the checking player, the speed used to move into the situation by the checking player, the contact point on the opponent where it was made by the checking player, the usage of the board as a mean to add force and power in the situation, not to be in conflict with the rule boarding. And also finally, the possibility for the check player to maintain her skating position. We are now going to watch two videos where we would like to give some standard examples of first, a minor penalty for illegal hit, followed by a movie presenting the standard for major penalties for illegal hit. In this instructional movie, we will go more in depth into the standard of calling minor penalties for illegal hit. In this first situation, we will see how the player in the black team enters a situation with a player in the yellow team. The black player is using more force in this situation than what is necessary and needed for gaining possession of the puck. The player is using more force than leaning and shoving the opponent in that body contact situation. This is a good example of when a minor penalty for illegal hit should be assessed. In this second situation, we see how the player in the yellow team is initiating a contact that is also of a higher force than leaning and shoving. The yellow player uses a speed and force that is still seen as low in the action, but is high enough to take this from a legal body contact to an illegal body contact. In this last situation, we will see how the player in the white team enters a battle for puck possession with a player from the red team. The player in the white team is using force and speed that is higher than allowed when it comes to making body contact with an opponent. In this situation, the white player needs to adjust the speed and force into the situation and the contact. In this situation, a minor penalty for illegal hit shall be assessed. In this rule information video, we go a little bit more in depth about the standard of calling major penalties for illegal hit. In this first situation, we will see how the black player is passing, shooting away the puck, and gets checked by the opponent. The yellow player has time to adjust her position and speed as the player in the black team releases the puck. The yellow player is using a force into the contact that is seen as excessive and recklessly endangers the opponent. This situation shall be penalized with a major and game misconduct for illegal hit. In this second situation, we will see how a player in the black team plays the puck around the corner and gets body checked by a player in the white team. As we can see in this video, black player in the puck possession is going towards the boards and try to protect the puck. The white player is using a force into the contact that is seen as excessive and recklessly endangering the opponent. In this situation, the white player needs to use less force into the check to make this a legal body contact. This situation shall be penalized with a major plus game misconduct for illegal hit. In our third and last video, we'll see how the player in the red team and yellow team battles for the puck down by the boards. The yellow player can find a different way to make body contact and a different impact point and force to gain puck possession in the situation. In the situation, the yellow player is using a force that is seen as excessive and recklessly endangers the opponent. This situation is a good example of a major penalty plus game misconduct for illegal hit. When we are on the topic of physical play, we would like to highlight a specific rule. In women's hockey, we had seen throughout the years that situations had increased revolving around kneeing. As ice hockey is a game of high speed and pace with quick changes of physical position, there is an extra awareness around the means of stopping an opponent. And we are really highlighting that you are not allowed to use the knee to check an opponent or to stop an opponent. This type of checking is connected with a high recklessness and endangerment of the opponents and should be enforced with a penalty whenever a player is leading in with their knee and or extends their legs outward to make contact with their opponent. We will show now a few examples revolving around kneeing. Please note that kneeing could be penalized with a minor penalty, a major penalty plus game misconduct, or with a match penalty. In this rule information video, we go a little bit more in depth in a specific physical aspect. We will look a bit more into situations connected to kneeing. Kneeing is in general a very dangerous action, connected with a high risk of injury. But there is still differences between minor penalties and major penalties called for kneeing. In this video, we see an example of a minor penalty. As we can see, the white player leads in with her knee into the contact. She makes a direct contact with the opponent with her knee. This is with low force and low speed and seen as a minor penalty for kneeing. In this situation, we see a white player that has plenty of other options to avoid the contact and impact point. White player still continues to lead in with her knee into the situation and makes a direct contact with the opponent with her knee. The player comes in a high speed and with a great force, connected with a high risk of injury and recklessly endangers the opponent. In this situation, the white player shall be assessed a major plus game misconduct penalty for kneeing. As we leave the part of the presentation regarding physical play, we will move in to talk a little bit more about the IIHF standard regarding restraining fouls. As we leave the part of the presentation regarding physical play, we will move in to talk a little bit more about the IIHF standard regarding restraining fouls. We have highlighted restraining fouls in two major objects. The first object is revolving around playing with the stick. We ask all participants to note that a player is allowed to use the stick as a tool to gain possession of the puck from the opponent, as this is a natural part of the game, to play the puck and play for possession of the puck by using the stick. But a player is not allowed to use the stick in any way described under the rule of hooking or slashing, where an illegal way of playing the stick towards the opponent creates an advantage, a risk of injury, or to an opponent in an open way. As you see on the picture, we have chosen to divide this in the explanation in 3 different areas. We have the green area at the picture. This area is really where we encourage everyone to play against when they use the stick to gain possession of the puck from the opponent. As soon as stick checks and stick comes up to the yellow area, this increases the risk for a player to be assessed with a penalty for slashing or hooking. Once the stick comes up towards the red area or anyway on the body of the opponent with either a slashing motion or a hooking motion, this means that the players run a very high risk of being penalized for either slashing or hooking when they play with the stick, if it falls under obvious, benefit, or a risk of injury. In this rule information video, we target a bit more information concerning the IIHF standards on restraining fouls, and in particular, slashing and hooking situations. Let's start first with hooking. It is important to note that players are allowed to use the stick-on-stick action to battle for the puck. But in no way can a player use her stick in a way to target gloves, body, etc. to restrain movement and speed from an opponent. In this situation, we will see how the white players trails behind the red players and uses her stick in a way that is not allowed. As we see from this situation, the player positions her stick between the hands and up towards the hands on the opponent player. The player loses the ability to play the puck and to move. This is a minor penalty for hooking. In this next situation, we will see how the white player from behind uses the stick up towards the gloves of the opponent. In this situation, the white player's stick comes up too high towards the opponent's gloves to make this a legal play. It is important to note that when the player uses stick towards an opponent, she has to play towards the green area. As soon as the stick goes up towards the yellow area, the risk increases for a hooking penalty. As soon as the stick goes up and restrains an opponent to play and move up in the red area, a penalty may be called from the game officials. This is a minor penalty for hooking. In the examples of slashing, we will see how the red player uses her stick to play up towards the hands of the opponent. Just when we talked about hooking, the sole purpose have to be to win possession of the puck and to use the stick to play towards the puck. As soon as the stick is played up towards the red area, the referee may call a slashing penalty, especially if this action creates a benefit for the player using the stick that high. To avoid called penalty for slashing, the player has to go towards the green area and towards the puck to play against the opponent. This is a minor penalty for slashing. This can also be if the opponent is not a puck carrier. In this situation, we see how the player is using a slashing action towards an opponent to create an advantage and a benefit. In this way, where the player is losing her stick. This is a minor penalty for slashing. The second focus concerning restraining foul is playing and using hand and body towards an opponent. The usage of body to compete for the puck possession is an essential part of the game. What is not permitted is to use any part of the body in a illegal way to grab, push, shove an opponent to gain possession of the puck. This is in the rulebook found under rules such as holding, roughing, etc. If any players by any means make this in an obvious way where there is an advantage created or where there is a risk of injury, a penalty shall be called by the game officials. We would like to highlight in the following video a few examples of holding and the standard around the implementation of the rule holding. Welcome to this IIHF instructional video concerning restraining fouls and the standard in regards to holding situations. In this video you will see a number of situations connected to the situations of holding. It is important that players are not allowed to use any free hand or any way their hands and body to hold an opponent and stop their movement and possibility to skate or play the puck. In this particular situations, you will find two players battling for the puck and the puck possession. But in these situations, the player number 3 in the black team takes one hand of her stick and uses the free hand to slow down the opponent. This is not a legal action and shall be penalized with a minor penalty for holding. In this second situations, you will find two players battling alongside the boards. These players are battling for a free puck, but where the player number 25 in the black team uses her body in a way that is not approved to be able to stop the opponent from playing the puck and moving freely. As we see here in the situations, the player is using the free arm to prevent the opponent to move freely, and the player number 25 in the black team is also using her leg to pinch the opponent towards the boards. This makes it impossible for the player in the yellow team to move freely and play the puck. This shall be penalized as a minor penalty for holding. As a part under restraining fouls, we also wanted to add an extra focus on actions and movements that players are using to deliberately delaying and slowing down the game. Regardless where the puck and the players is in position, the goal is that the puck and the players is always in motion. A player that is in any way using her body and or the boards to cover, stop up, step on, standing on the puck, making it impossible to play, or shows no attempt to play the puck, and only uses this position to stall and slow down the game, may be penalized in accordance with the delaying the game rule. We would like to show an example here in the following video around this type of situations. In this rule information video, would we like to highlight a situation where a player is purposely stalling and slowing down the game. In this situation, we will see how players ending up around the puck that is gathered down in the corner. It is important that the players, and in this case the white player that is pushing the puck towards the boards, is in continuous motion trying to free and play the puck. A player that is on purposely standing or pushing the puck towards the boards, making no intention to play the puck, may be penalized for delaying the game. This is extra important that we all work on keeping the puck in motion, both to have an attractive hockey, but also to minimize the risk for other types of infractions. Our last major area around the IIHF standard and implementing the playing rules is around fair play and equipment. We would like to start off by talking about fair play. What we would like to highlight under fair play is around abusive behavior. The game officials are instructed to strictly follow the rules outlined in the rulebook concerning abuse of officials and unsportsmanlike conduct. Any sort of abusive behavior, regardless on the situation or whom it's directed towards, shall be penalized according to the playing rules. We really want to emphasize there is no place in ice hockey for expressions or gestures of a character that is sexual, racial, ethnical, or any similar type of action, both on and off the ice. This is both before, during, or after a game. Such action is to be penalized under the rule of abuse of official or unsportsmanlike conduct, and could be assessed with a game misconduct penalty and be up for review for any disciplinary matter. Another aspect under the theme of fair play is talking about diving and embellishment. Any player who blatantly dives, embellish a foul or a reaction, or who feigns an injury shall be penalized with a minor penalty under the rule of diving and embellishment. This is a type of behavior that we are not encouraging within ice hockey. It is important that this is not one and the same thing, talking about diving and embellishment. Diving is an action of a player trying to draw a penalty against an opponent, while embellishment means that a victim makes the impression of a foul look bigger than it really is, even though a foul has been committed. It is important that diving and embellishment could be called in situations where an opponent is making a foul that is also penalized by the game officials. In this rule information video, we will give you a few examples under the rule of diving and embellishment. Diving is when a player is completely making up something that happens out on the ice, while an embellishment is when a player making something look bigger or that adds on force or movement from a situation that is more than what it was actually needed. In this situation, we see how a contact happens between the red player and the white player, and where that contact makes the white player fall. Watching this situation, the contact is not in proportion with how the player is falling. This is a typical example of a player that uses an embellishment to draw a penalty and draw the attentions from the game officials. This situation is a minor penalty for diving and embellishment. It is important to note that contact may happen, and that the important part is that the player is not exaggerating in their reaction from the contact. We have here an example on that on the blue player that ends up in a contact with white player and falls a lot easier than the actual contact that is initiated by the opponent. One of the most important aspects when it comes to the topic of player safety is to highlight the rules around players and goalkeepers' equipment. One of the most important pieces of equipment that a player has is the helmet. And it is important for players to note that should the helmet of a skater come off during game action, the player must go directly to the player's bench. The player is not allowed to touch the puck or participate in game action when the helmet has come off. The player is also not allowed to put back the helmet on, even if you put it on securely, and is able to participate in the game again. As soon as the helmet comes off, the player has to go and change. A player breaking this rule shall be penalized with a minor penalty. For players participating in the IIHF Championship in the women's category senior level, there is two types of face protections to be used. It's either the cage style facial protection or the full visor face protection as seen in this picture. It is important that both these types of protection need to be properly fixed to the helmet and to be tightened up so that the construction is not harming the player wearing this piece of equipment. Players without mentioned protection are not allowed to participate in a game. For players that are younger and is in the under 18 age category who participate in senior age category must wear the proper protective equipment as specified for that age category. When we are talking about goalkeeper equipment, we really want to emphasize fair play. A goalkeeper is responsible to ensure that her equipment is having the measurements and design as outlined in the playing rules. For the 2022-2023 season, the IIHF will not conduct any measurements prior to an event, but if any irregularities would be observed during the course of the event, the equipment of the goalkeeper will be inspected and be reported accordingly to proper authorities for further sanctions. It is, in the end, each individual goalkeeper's responsibility to make sure that she has the proper equipment. We're now leaving the part in the presentation where we talked about the playing rules and the implementation of the playing rules. We will now focus the remainder of this presentation on the game procedures and regulations in a short overview of what we feel are the most important topics that you need to know prior to the event. When we talk about game procedures and regulations, we often come back to a document called the IIHF Sport Regulations. It is important that you also have a good knowledge about the sport regulations, just as you have knowledge about the IIHF playing rules. When we talk about the regulations, we will not go over all the aspects of the sport regulations. We will, in brief, go over video review systems, penalty shot shootout procedure, television commercial breaks and goal break regulations for televised games, and lastly, team entry and departure from the ice surface. Please note that the IIHF Sport Regulations can be downloaded from the IIHF webpage. In the IIHF Championship program for the season 2022-2023, there is only one women's senior tournament that is using the video review system that is found under Rule 37 and 38. And that is for the World Women's Top Division taking place in Canada in April. We asked the participating teams and game officials for that event to see a separate presentation that is sent out concerning the rules and standard for usage of the IIHF Rule 37 and 38 at this event. When a game is not finished after regular time, we will have an overtime regulation and, if needed, a penalty shot shootout procedure. On each event, the finalized procedure for conducting overtime and the penalty shot shootout procedure is presented in the first directorate meeting. In general, overtime is played in a format with 3 skater versus 3 skater. The playing time is 5 minutes, but could be adjusted in various stages of the event. For example, if we play in a playoff format with bronze medal games, gold medal games, etc., a 10-minute or 20-minute playing time could also be implemented. If there is no winner after the overtime, there should be a penalty shot shootout procedure that decides the winner of the game. The basic rule in such a procedure is that it involves 5 different shooters per team, and if the game is still tied after these 5 shooters per team, the shootout continues with a tie-break shootout. The same or different skaters can take the remaining shots. It is important that the last shooting team from the original 5 shooters starts the tie-breaking shootout round. And we really want to emphasize, please note that at the directorate, at the event, the correct information about procedures of overtime and penalty shot shootout procedures will be presented. For games that are televised, we can use what's called commercial breaks and goal breaks regulation. This is also something that you will be informed about at the first directorate meeting or by your IIHF officiating coach on site. In shortly, we can say that during each regular period of the games in an IIHF championship that is televised, there may be three commercial breaks if the games are on TV or broadcasted in any other way. Each with a duration of between 70 to 80 seconds. This is defined and decided prior to the event and presented at the directorate. This is coordinated by the commercial coordinator on site, and the breaks takes the following order. Break 1 is after 14 minutes and the first stop. Break 2 is after the first stop after 10 minutes. And break 3 is at the 6-minute mark and the first stoppage after that. No breaks during overtime periods will be allowed. Please note that you can find more information about the television commercial breaks and goal break regulations in the IIHF Sport Regulations. In games that are televised, Also, the goal break procedure is used. During each period of regulation time for any game of an IHF competition that is televised, goal break shall be taken as described in the sport regulation, each with a duration of 45 seconds if nothing else is presented, and this is also coordinated by the goal break coordinator. The puck should drop as soon as the goal break stoppage has expired, and is an important factor for example, player change procedures and in competitions using coach's challenge for when a team can conduct a coach's challenge. The last aspect we want to point out concerning the game procedures and regulations is concerning the team entry and departure from the ice surface. This is an important aspect both from a game flow perspective but also from a player's safety perspective. The game clock will be the only timing device used in the timing of all activities, including the pre-game warm-up, the period intermission, and the actual game itself. We ask you to please follow and respect the game time countdown. No players besides the starting 6 shall access the ice prior to the start of any period if the teams are entering the ice via their player benches. They shall then immediately take their positions at the player's bench. At the end of the first and the second periods, the visiting team will return to its player's bench and remain there until the entire home team has departed the ice surface. At the conclusion of the game, the losing team will depart the ice surface first, with the winning team waiting on the ice until the losing team has left the ice surface. Please note that this is a procedure if nothing else is specified by the IIHF chairperson or any IIHF staff on site at the event. We would like to take this last opportunity to remind you a little bit about the activities and the procedures that will meet you when you come to the event, either in the role of a team coach or an on-ice game official. In the preparation for the start of your upcoming tournament as a team, each head coach will be invited to either an online or an in-person meeting called the Head Coach Rules and Information Meeting. We ask you to note that this meeting is mandatory for all teams and the head coach to participate at. This meeting is an opportunity to prepare any questions or concerns from this presentation or general rules and game officials related questions. This is the first meeting point that you will have with the IIHF staff or the officiating coaches participating at this event. After the head coach rule and information meeting, we ask you to continue with a good cooperation with the IIHF staff and or IIHF officiating coaches on site at the event. The officiating coach or coaches comes by the team's dressing room roughly 1 hour prior to game start. This is a great opportunity for the IIHF staff and or officiating coaches to continuously have a good dialogue and an open, transparent dialogue with the teams and with the coaching staff. This is an opportunity where any questions, concern, clarification can be brought up prior to the game. And we ask everyone to use this opportunity and have always a good and positive tone, regardless of the situation. Being transparent is not the same with being a dump where we can say anything or express in any manner our opinion. This is a place for dialogue and a good communication between the teams and the IIHF staff. If you are watching this presentation as a game officials, we ask you to please prepare for the on-ice startup meeting. All game officials will have a startup meeting in connection to arrival for the event. This meeting will cover practicalities connected to the event, but it will also serve as a good forum for questions from this presentation. Please prepare any questions or concerns from this presentation or general rules related questions beforehand to this meeting. On behalf of the International Ice Hockey Federation, I would like to say thank you. We are much looking forward to a great and exciting tournament and to working with all of you. Together we make our event the great experience for fans, players and game officials all around the world. And the IIHF officiating team is very much looking forward to see you all here soon around in the rinks.